smiles right here. And we are so glad that we can see them. There are true smiles right here. Freedom. There is true freedom right here. There is true freedom right here. And we are so glad that we have found it. There is true freedom right here. Community. Can we do that? There is true community right here. There is true community right here. And we are so glad that we can build it. There is true community right here. Presence. There is true presence right here. There is true presence right here. And we are so glad that we have found it. There is true presence right here. Can offer flowers. So today, dear friends, we are very happy to sit here and enjoy being in the Sangha, in our community, and we'll start with 3 sounds of the bell, and we invite you all to establish yourself in the present moment, smile, and touch some gratitude, because it's quite rare in the world that there's a gathering like this. Most of the world is going in a direction that this will not happen. And yet you are all here. You're breathing in mindfully, you're resting in your body, you're coming together as a community, and nobody's paying you to do it. You do it from your own freedom, your own choice. So let's touch the seed of gratitude in our heart for all of us who are here today as we listen to 3 sounds of the bell. Bring all of our attention to our breath. We're still breathing. We can be grateful for our breath and grateful for the community around us. So dear respected Thai, dear noble community, so welcome to our Day of Mindfulness on Sunday, March 17th, is that right? In the year 2024. I want to start and just continue to water the seed of gratitude. especially to our North American Dhamma Teacher Council who is present here in Deer Park. I wonder if if you'd like to stand up, those of you who are here, our elders in the Dhamma teachers, so the Sangha can look at all of our wonderful Bodhisattva. I was thinking, Thai used to say Thai is a Dhamma lion, and we are all Dhamma cubs. And now the Dhamma cubs are becoming more like teenagers. We're almost like, and so these are some of the Dhamma lions that have been continuing to build the Sangha and also support the monastic community. Thank you. They invited the monastic last night for a tea session in the Moon Over Mountain Meditation Hall. And it was so joyful to see the care and the love that can happen when we touch the Dhamma, when some of our elders in the lay Dhamma Teacher Council have been practicing since the 80s with Thai. And so hearing the stories, hearing and seeing the gentleness, the siblinghood is very touching, because most of us monastics, we are all kind of younger in the practice, right? Because we've benefited from their wisdom, and also Thai benefited from the training many of them and allowing us to have a little bit easier time to come into the community. So I feel very, very grateful that you're all here and continuing to support our multifold community. So this morning, a few months ago, we looked into this morning and we saw that Deer Park had decided to send many of our young monastics to Vietnam on a pilgrimage to visit those places that our teacher deeply cared about and felt are those places that really help us touch the roots of our spiritual tradition, which is in Vietnam and also in India. And so we invited actually all the brothers on this occasion of the 2-year anniversary, or 2-year memorial of Thai's passing, which is a very large ceremony, like the most important ceremony actually in the passing of a family member or a great teacher like Thai. So we had a gathering in the root temple of more than 400 monastics in the Plum Village tradition from around the world, from France, from Germany, from Vietnam, from Plum Village, Thailand, as well as the US centers and Australia and Hong Kong and many places around the world. And so it was a first chance for many of our young brothers to meet many of our other elders who are in the other centers, and to play together and cook together, because many of them had a chance to cook in the root temple of our tradition in Hue in central Vietnam. And then because we are there and we know that taking a flight is a heavy carbon impact on the planet, so we decided to continue and go on a spiritual pilgrimage to Yên Tu, the mountain which is the center of the bamboo forest tradition, where I think the only king in history abdicated his throne to become a monk in Vietnam after he repelled the Mongol invasion from the north 2 times. And then he said, okay, now instead of watering the seed of revenge in my people, I want to water the seed of peace. So he went to the mountain of Yên Tu and became a monk, and then gave the throne to his son, King Tran Nhan Thong. And Thai made a point when Thai returned to Vietnam to, actually Thai had never been there because it was in the north. And so Thai went for the first time in 2005. And usually when we go back to Vietnam, we go there and we walk with mindfulness and with every step up the mountain to the top and enjoy chanting at the various temples along the way. So I think we were the first ones to chant the English chants. First group of monastics to chant English chants at some of the temples going up into mountain. And we also had a chance to go to some of our centers that are kind of a little bit hidden in Vietnam, Chư Tư Đức and Cam Ranh, and see some of the places that are deeply practicing the Plum Village tradition and connect with our brothers there. And another really rich part, I don't want to share more because I want to hear from the young brothers, is the great chance we had to visit the homes of many of our brothers and sisters, some of whom are here now at Deer Park or were there previously in the center and in the north, and in the south as well, to just go to the homes during the Lunar New Year and offer a stick of incense and then eat really good food. Yeah. So actually we went a large group, we were 15 of us, but when I asked the Dhamma teachers, they thought this may be too many to bring up here. 15 brothers, and then we also had a group of about 15 sisters. So I think maybe 30 in total. Many of the sisters were a bit the elder sisters, but the brothers more younger brothers. So I think they wanted to hear from the younger brothers. Some of the elder sisters are not back yet. They're still visiting home. So this morning we have about maybe 45, 50 minutes. And I would like to invite my younger brothers to share. So I'll introduce them briefly. I don't think they've been up here much on the Day of Mindfulness, so you might not know them yet. So on my right is Brother Generosity, or Brother Min Lung, the eldest of the brothers up here, and ordained also with Brother Min Yan in the White Sage family in 2018. Yeah. Sweet Sage, Sweet Sage. And Brother Min Lung is the work coordinator at Deer Park, so he got a break for a few months. He didn't have to tell anyone to do anything. So I think he was happy about that. And Brother Min Lung is also the brother who's been very diligent in learning Vietnamese. So for those of you who speak Vietnamese, you can come up to him afterwards and try it out. See. No, he's been very, very helpful on the trip to translate sometimes for the group. And he's really a brother with a big heart. So Generosity is a very good name for him. He's always looking out for his younger brothers and elder brothers and seeing how he can better build the community here. And he's from Laguna Beach, California, so nearby. And then next is Brother Kindness, Brother Min Yan, who also ordained in 2018 in the Sweet Sage family. And Brother Min Yan is from Arizona, and with the root from Mexico, and Spanish, and a Spanish-speaking brother who's helped a lot with our growing our Sangha here, with the Day of the Dead we started, and some Spanish-speaking retreats. And Brother Min Yan studied mathematics before he became a monk, and so you can ask him about all kinds of strange algorithms. And I don't know what he's talking about when he starts going on about math, but I trust that it's all good. And he's also my roommate now, so we joke a lot together. And he's a very, very gentle brother his name Kindness is very appropriate. He's always looking out for me as his elder brother, taking care of checking in to see, like, are you doing okay? Do you need anything? And he's very good at volleyball and baseball, actually. But we don't play much baseball, but be careful if you're on the other team. You turn away for a second, and then before you know it, the ball's on the ground. And how did that happen? Brother Minyan has a way of getting to places on the volleyball court which we never imagined you could get to in such a short time. And on my left is the youngest brother up here, Suchu Nya Ang, or the seal of the one seal, actually it means like mudra, which could be the hand gesture of the Buddha. Sometimes they call it mudras, certain hand gestures, but it also can mean the seal of the emperor, when you put kind of stamp on the letter to signify that it comes from the king or from the minister. And so Brother Nyang is a novice brother and ordained in 2022. 22, no? September? 21. Oh, yeah, 22. September 25th, 2022, yeah, okay. And he's grew up in Canada, in Montreal, and his root from Gujarat, in India, and speaks a little bit of Gujarati, yeah, from your family. And so when we were going around Vietnam, many people said, "Oh, it's Bodhidharma." I think he was very good-natured because in East Asian tradition, Bodhidharma came from India to bring Buddhism to China, and so there are many statues, and so there was very much many questions like, "Will you bring Buddhism back to India?" No pressure. But Brother Nyang is also very involved with the communications here at Deer Park and taking photographs and supporting with some of the tech around the monastery. And he's a very intelligent brother and very caring as well for his brothers, and likes to make jokes too. So that's our panel, and I'll invite them each to just share for about 15 minutes each, just to talk a little bit about like your impressions of the trip and what it meant for you, why you felt inspired to go to Vietnam, and some stories maybe of the trip. What is the feeling of going together as a Sangha to these beautiful places that Thai cared so much about? Maybe we'll start with the youngest. It's okay.
Dear respected Thai, dear noble community. Yeah, it's strange. In the monastery, we have a culture of the youngest always goes last when they're serving food and whatnot. But for some reason, when it comes to public speaking, they always ask the younger one to go first. But yes, I'm very grateful to be able to share first. Yeah, going on this trip to Vietnam, I didn't really have any expectations on what Vietnam would be like, what this pilgrimage would be. I've heard many things from my siblings, especially my Vietnamese siblings, on how beautiful it is and just being at the root temple, but I didn't really know what any of that meant. And yeah, just going there with an open mind, yeah, really allowed me to just take in everything that I needed to. And really, I think for me, the biggest part was getting in touch with spiritual ancestors. In Vietnam, during a portion of it while we were in Hue, we had the opportunity to have a monastic retreat. As Tefa Blue said, we had like 400 monastics from all the centers, so that was quite a big retreat of just monastics. So much energy of practice, of laughter, of enjoyment, and togetherness. Because, yeah, it's like, when will we have an opportunity like that to come together, all the monastics of the different centers? And there was a moment during one of the days where all the English-speaking monastics from all the different centers got together, and we had lunch together outside, getting eaten by mosquitoes. And it was so lovely. Yeah, we all went around sharing a bit. And one thing I shared, we were all sharing about memorable moments, because it was only like a couple weeks into our trip. I think it was second week. Memorable moments of our trip so far, because we've got to the root temple, we've gotten some introductions and some tours to walk around, and so we're all sharing memorable moments. And one thing that I shared was I never expected to touch my spiritual ancestors so deeply at the root temple. And one of the sisters said, "Wait, are you Vietnamese?" And I said, "No." And so she's like, "What do you mean?" Because, yeah, you look on all the altars, and it's all the Vietnamese patriarchs. But for me, it wasn't necessarily just those spiritual ancestors, but also long before that, getting in touch with especially all the monastics that came before me in the time of India, when Buddhism was still flourishing in India, and still monastics were very abundant in India, and getting in touch with those monastics who kind of paved the way for me to be the one Indian monk that many people might see in their lifetime. And yeah, having a lot of gratitude for that. Yeah, because I think another thing that was very alive for me is that, like, wherever we went, there was so much gratitude and so much generosity from monastics, from various temples, from the lay people. And I think for me, I can just thank my spiritual ancestors for paving that path. Of course, I can thank Thai and the Buddha, but I also, yeah, have a lot of gratitude for the many other spiritual ancestors who might, like, we don't necessarily have a name for them or know who they are, but that they played a part in allowing Buddhism and the practice to continue and touch people very deeply. Because, yeah, like Tefa Blue was sharing, people see me and they might say Bodhidharma or something, but it's not necessarily my own merit that brings that. It is the merit of all my ancestors who brought about, this belief that, monastics are someone who you can go to, who can help you. So people have a lot of faith in monastics. And that was very different, receiving so much generosity Yeah, because it's, I mean, especially at Deer Park, we don't go that often outside, but when we were in Vietnam, we didn't stay at the root temple. We stayed 30 minutes away, so we had enough time to walk around, and walking 30 minutes to the root temple. Hello? Okay, back in business. Yes, many people would just come and say, "Oh, Te Ando, like Indian monk, please come." And they would want to give me tea or biscuits, and just like, I don't know, they would say things, but I wouldn't understand really. And Google Translate only gets you so far sometimes. And my very broken Vietnamese saying like, "Yes, I don't understand." But yes, just so much generosity and smiles and love. And yeah, I just owe a lot to my ancestors, I think, for allowing that to happen. Yeah, because people have a lot of faith, and they see so much, and sometimes it's hard to accept, especially for me as a younger brother. I'm like, it's like, what did I do? I'm just bald and have a robe, and I've been a monk for a year and a half. Like, what merit do I have? But I think one realization that's been very strong for me is like, just acting as a vessel. And especially in Vietnam, people see monks and they just want to give a lot. They want to be very generous, and we're just a vessel to receive that. And just allowing that to happen, because I feel like, especially for me, growing up in North America, it's kind of hard to be generous sometimes. Like, you can give to people experiencing homelessness, and then people can be like, "Oh, why are you giving it to them? They might not use the funds well." And then you're like, "Well, I just want to be nice," and or give. You can try to donate to nonprofit organizations, and then there's all this thing of like, how are they using the funds? There's so much, things can be very convoluted very quickly when you're just trying to give. And I feel like in Vietnam, people had no second thoughts, because that culture is there of generosity and giving. And it really isn't about what is given, because there's so much of a range. And even just people smiling and bowing and saying hello and wanting to, I don't know, some people want to shake my hand, some people want to give me a hug. But just accepting all of it with open hands and an open heart. And I think that was very special. And I see that that's something that kind of is lacking in the Western culture. The way that we can interact, like without a boundary or a layer, to just give. And there was this moment when we were staying at this homestay. There was this older lady working there. And she, we were staying there for a couple weeks. And then at one point, she looks at my feet and she says, "Oh, you have bunions, just like me." Well, like, it was through Google Translate, but that's the whole thing. She was surprised that I had bunions. And I guess because, there's many people from the West that would come, and I guess you would see their feet and they don't have bunions or something. I don't know. But I don't know, for some reason she was very surprised, and she found that to be a moment of connection, that I had bunions. And I thought about it, and I said, no, it's a good connection, because there's moments where I was like I'm 24, and I was like, I want to get my feet fixed because I'm like, they look weird, you know? Because I have bunions because I didn't have appropriately sized shoes growing up all the time. And so, yeah, there are people who just have bunions when they're young. And then to think like, I want to change that can remove the conditions for people connecting. Like people can be like, oh, monks should always look beautiful, have white, straight teeth. And that's why I never got braces. Because, yeah, we see people as relating to us. And that was one moment where I was like, I want to look like everyday people. And that's good. To not remove ourselves so much from what everyone else in the world looks like. Because, yeah, we have so many opportunities, especially in North America, to get this done for our health. But is it really necessary? And is it really helpful to inspire people and to bring them closer to us? Because, yeah, not everyone can be a monastic, but a monastic can come from anywhere. And not just monastic, but practitioners. You know, we want people to be inspired and to relate to us. And sometimes, like, you know, I'm like, oh, my bunions are Dharma doors. And that was a great realization to have. Same thing as me being Indian or being this or that. I don't have to change who I am or try to be someone different, because someone is always looking for those attributes to see themselves in a monastic or a practitioner and be like, oh, I can be like that person because I'm already sort of like that. They see those characteristics and they feel moved. Yeah, during our time in Vietnam, there was, so many moments where, we can really see our spiritual roots, going to different temples and seeing sort of like the Dharma uncles and aunties and cousins of Thai, so many different temples that all have this relation. And it's sort of like, I can still relate to it, where it's like, like your parents like bring you out in front of all these strangers and they're like, oh, I held you as a child, sort of moment, where you're like, who are all these people? And seeing all these people that have all these relations to Thai or to Vietnamese Buddhism, and see how much, kind of that the circle was somewhat big but also small. Seeing that and having a lot of gratitude for the people who were very inspired and moved to help Thai practice and to help Thai come back to Vietnam and to continue the practice in Vietnam even when it isn't easy. And that was really moving, because it's not just the monks and nuns, but it's also the lay practitioners who find ways to practice and to do their little undercover retreats, and seeing that the heart of the people was so strong and their practice energy was so strong and their bodhicitta was so strong. And it gave me a lot of faith about the practice and about my own role as a monastic in seeing what I have to offer. seeing how I can support my fellow brothers and sisters, seeing how I can support myself in my own practice, and seeing ways in which I can support our lay friends who come here, and when we go out to other lay friends, and seeing how we can support them. I don't know how long I've been speaking, but I think it's about time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I can see even our young monastics have a lot of wisdom. I just share for those who maybe are new to our community, when we say root temple, that's the monastery where our teacher ordained as a novice, which is in Hue in central Vietnam. It's called Chua Tu Hieu, which means loving kindness, filial piety, kind of filial piety. So it's in the central part of Vietnam. So when we spent the first 4 weeks of almost a month of the trip at that temple.
Dear respected Tay, dear Sangha, dear sensitive microphone. Hello, hello. And my name is Brother Kindness again, and I'm very warmed actually to be up here in front of the community and have heard my brother Nyat Un share, and for Tay Phap Lu in his introduction. I don't know, because I've experience speaking in front of a group. I don't know how we capture 6 weeks in Vietnam in 15 or so minutes. There's so many ways I can share about what a marvelous and confusing and exciting and uncertain experience. But I have to use a mantra that I like to employ. There's a movie that at least one brother in the room knows, that's where someone says, "Always tell the truth. It's the easiest thing to remember." So as much as I can, I'll try to just share some things that I can in this setting. If you want to hear about the misadventures, you can find one of us after. By misadventures, I mean we wanted to look for pizza in Vietnam and something like this, and got turned down because they do appointments apparently. Anyway, if you want to hear all that, maybe I share after, or you can find one of us. But thinking about the trip and thinking about why I wanted to go on this trip, there's 2 main reasons, and the reasons that helped me come to the monastery in the first place and devote my life to this way and this practice. The first one, and I think I can speak for some of my brothers as well, for a good amount of the brothers that went to Vietnam, we have not actually had the opportunity. We never got the chance to meet our own teacher, Sư Om Thich Nhat Hanh. Nevertheless, we were inspired enough. We saw enough Dharma talks, read enough books, and especially were in communities enough to know that there's a lot to, there's a lot of wonder in following this path and having the community that keeps our teacher alive. So much so that we were able to ordain, having never met our very teacher. So for me, the thing that I have to keep in mind time and time again is this idea I have of our own teacher, which is just about all I'll ever have, an approximation. And year after year, it gets a little bit better, I feel. And I am more inspired by our teacher. But one of the main reasons for going to Vietnam was to walk around, to try to breathe, and try to see what is it that my very own teacher saw and that he touched, whether it's in the root temple, whether it's walking one of the many little roads and roadlets, and maybe getting lost and finding yourself in a rice field or something. My main, I think more than 50% of my motivation was to try to see and to try to breathe with my very own teacher's eyes and to try to understand a bit more who is this incredible human who has given us this very gift that allows us to be in this meditation hall and to be able to be sharing this. It's an incredible thing. I don't know many other communities where we get to do things quite like this. That was one of the main reasons, and very similar to it, a secondary reason had to do with really understanding my brothers and my sisters. My suspicion for a long time has been that there's a bit of overlap in Mexican culture as well as Vietnamese culture. I think I tell a little story here. The first time I came to Deer Park, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know about the Lunar New Year and that it's celebrated here at Deer Park and in our other monasteries. So I arrived with my ideas of meditation and Zen that I'd built since 2009 when I consciously found the practice, ready to get into it, ready to do the walking, to do the work, to sleep next to little, I had these ideas of what the monastery was, and I was wrong. I came to Deer Park, and the very first thing that happened, because it was the Tet season, is there were these monks and nuns around a fire with the biggest pots I'd ever seen in my life, and ash on them. And next thing I know, I'm being encouraged, because some people found out I drum. I'm encouraged to find a chopstick and start playing a pan, the backside of a pan. And I just never seen a group of people so happy in their lives to be up 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. I remember playing this pan and just not knowing what they're singing either is in Vietnamese. I remember thinking, I don't know what's going on, but I see family here. I see a home here. Like, all these ideas I had about serious practice and how each of my brothers and sisters were going to be this thing up in the sky. Yeah, those were, in the best ways, they were just crushed on that day. And it reminded me a lot of Mexico. It reminded me a lot of growing up, especially in my mom's hometown. So I don't know if anyone here is from Tecuala, Nayarit, or even knows where that is, but yeah, my mom was born in the west coast of Mexico, this lovely little town where my dad would tease mom and have this running joke that it's really quaint and really not developed. So they only recently had bicycles in the whole village, and they got to the point where they had 2 bicycles in the entire village. My dad always said this joke, and my mom would bury her face somewhere. My dad said, yeah, and can you believe it? One day they crashed. The 2 bicycles in the whole village, and they crashed. My mom would get red and say, you need to stop that joke. How many times I've heard that joke as a kid, but I remember being there in that little village and just being so in love as a kid. You walk out, you're encouraged to gamble on these little things that are in front of every corner store. There's these little coins, and you get more coins, but you can wander into anyone's home, and they know who you are because you're the cousin of the brother of the sister of the, and so on. Sorry, translation. I know it's not an easy gig right now, wherever you are, translator. But yeah, it was this atmosphere where it really did feel like a big family. We call it a barrio. Is a little difference in language. But here in the community and in our own namesake, in Plum Village, we know it as a village. And I really saw that connection right away. My first hour in Vietnam, after we got out of the car, we're in the homestay. Yeah, we're locating our homestay, and some brothers were getting rid of wasps in their room at the very top, which is another story you can ask our brother later. Yeah, very first hour, a brother who I'd met before at Deer Park found me, put me on a motorcycle, and we're going to the root temple. And we're, yeah, cleaning, we're sweeping a little bit, we're saying hello to some other brothers in the root temple, and I had no idea what's going on, how I'm gonna get back, or I don't even know the address of the homestay. I figured everything would be okay. I remembered the name of it, and I figured if I had to, I could just walk around enough with the little Vietnamese I know, and I hope I stick out enough. I could ask around, and everything would be okay. And for the 6 weeks in Vietnam, that was essentially how it went down. We didn't know what was going on, what's happening next hour, next minute sometimes, if we have time for a bathroom break or anything, but it's going to work itself out. And so the second point I was mentioning earlier of trying to get to know my brothers and sisters, I wanted to really see, where are they coming from? And yeah, what is it that they call home? Because I think that's very crucial for me connecting with them and seeing, okay, there's my idea of where they come from, and then there's the reality. And I wanted to immerse myself in that reality as much as I can. And not to speak too long or belabor the point, but yeah, there is considerable overlap in these two cultures. And luckily, there's no Mexican patriarch, so I wasn't asked to take as many pictures. I wasn't pulled aside after the main group pictures as our brother here. So I felt really fortunate, and maybe I was told I'm a little Viet passing, so I can get away with, I look Vietnamese, so I wasn't bothered too much, which is great. But yeah, I think about some other things from Vietnam that stood out. So those 2 points have to do with exactly our teacher and the location we were in. But a third thing that stood out that we kind of anticipated in our small group before we got on that first airplane, and then we saw come to life. The third thing that really stood out to me from the Vietnam trip was just the harmony in our little cluster, in our little family. I'm not sure anywhere else in the world you can take 10, a group of 10 or so men in our little uniforms and everything, and we don't know the language, most of us. We don't know where we're going. We have no itinerary. We don't know if the jet lag will be over it soon enough. I don't know any other group that could have as much ease as our group did in just all the confusion that came around the logistics, not the spirit or the heart, but just the little things, how we get from one place to another, where we sleep, how we divvy up the rooms, who gets the only room with AC, who gets the room with the sink connected to the ground, actually. Very small things, but I don't think you could have found a more low-fuss group of brothers. I'm probably the most high maintenance, and all I want is to have one cup, that I can keep track of, which doesn't happen either, because next thing you know, someone takes it and washes it for you, and just have to release into the unknown. Like, I don't know what's going on here. So I think that's something that stood out, and as I and my brothers have shared among ourselves, after the trip, and a bit during the trip, we've recapped, and we realized that that's kind of one of the big things that stood out in our time being there, especially for the sanghas we interacted with. It wasn't our way of sitting or whether we hold the cup with two hands when we drink from it or something like that. I think that they could see a group of foreigners, most of us, in Vietnam that are united by this practice, and they're smiling, and they're teasing each other. They're kind of doing what we're giving a small taste of, and they're happy. I think that's the Dharma talk that maybe they were receiving, and we've heard these words as such from some of the Sangha friends out in Vietnam. And yeah, it's hard to see from their point of view because we are monastics, but I think taking them at their word that was the real power of being able to be out there and with our own affinities, our own natural way of being, as well as with the practices of, let's say, deep listening and being there for each other and being able to be flexible, which is a big muscle to train as a monastic. I think they could feel that and they could see that. And that's not something anyone can get from a book. Everyone's Zen master, Zen gangster, whatever, sitting alone, in their own little house, removed away from the world and traffic and maybe, I don't know, other things removed. But it's until you live with somebody, you share a room with them, you see them every day. Okay, how is their peace? How is their stillness? Or like my mom would say about my dad time and time again, yeah, he's great and funny, but live with him. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'll translate for this for you guys later. Don't worry. And yeah, they used to tease each other like this a lot. And no, that's actually deep Dharma, I think. Yeah, live with them. So what you're seeing up here is just four of us sharing and doing our best to recount. But yeah, all these unspoken things and all these little things that couldn't really be put into words, but felt, yeah, I can't begin to put words to that, I think. But it would be something in that direction, just that we're there in Vietnam, and that the practice is healthy and strong and green, and that our teacher is still there by extension. Yeah, I think our ability to flow harmoniously and find ourselves in very interesting situations time and time again, and be okay. And we didn't have to begin anew formally. We didn't have to begin anew once. Oh my God. I begin anew here sometimes just because I said the wrong thing after, Just I slipped up, and yeah, in Vietnam we were able just to flow so harmoniously. Yeah, that to me is the biggest gift. It doesn't matter we go to Africa and we go to India, we go to the moon, something like that, that we can have a group like this and enjoy the process of getting there, enjoy the time we are there, and enjoy coming back and unpacking so much more than luggage. Wow. That right there is a testament to what we can do, and that we can do it together. So I'd like to think that our teacher is smiling at our ability to have come back from the trip successfully. I'm careful with that word, but I think if I had to give it a word, yeah, it was a successful trip. Yeah. So I think I give some time for my brother to share a bit about Vietnam. We don't know if it's going to be in Vietnamese or in English yet, or a hybrid fusion of both. I know he could do it, and he might take the English route because he doesn't want to flex on us mortals, Doesn't want to show off. But I'll end it there, and apologies for any incoherence. I'm pretty sleepy, which is okay, because that's how I shared in Vietnam half the time. No naps were guaranteed ever, so I feel bad, and then I don't at the same time. So you get what you get. Thank you for entertaining me.
Hello. Dear Thai, dear Sangha, so nice to be back at Deer Park after being on the road for 6 weeks in Vietnam. Yeah, I've been telling brothers, going to Deer Park feels like one of the highlights of the trip, or one of the most beautiful places we've gotten to visit, and we're so fortunate we get to stay here and live here. Yeah, they have a saying in Vietnamese, "Đi thật xa để trở về," and I feel that way about every time we leave Deer Park. It means you go far in order to come home, or in order to come back. And whenever we leave for an extended period and come back to Deer Park, it's like, oh yeah, we're so fortunate to get to live here. And to have all of you to come and practice with us on Sunday. To be a fourfold Sangha is a wonderful thing. I really enjoy listening to Brother Minyan and Brother Nya'an share. These are two of the most witty brothers in the Sangha, the best English speakers. I think I speak better Vietnamese than them, but they speak better English than I do. And the trip to Vietnam was so rich. I mean, there's so much I want to share, and there's so little time. So I'm trying to think of the cream of the crop. Is that the phrase? Cream of the crop. Well, one thing I'll say is that overall, we have really deep roots, really strong roots. And this tree is not going anywhere that we're growing here. I know when Thai passed away, there was people who were worried about what's going to happen to the Sangha and what's going to happen to the monastics. And there's a lot more to our tradition, a lot more to Plum Village than just our teacher Thai, who's a big part. But there's a lot to it. And like Brother Minyan shared, I think he's living on in all of us. And when we are practicing, these teachings that Thai transmitted to us, the mindful walking, the mindful breathing, when we're practicing arriving and being at home in the present moment, then we're part of this stream of ancestors of Thai and of these wonderful teachers, Master Tang Hoi, Master Liu Quan, that came before us. And so I was very touched by going to this ancestral homeland, even though I was born and raised in the US, and I didn't grow up with Buddhism at all, but I'm learning to adopt Buddhism and Vietnam as my spiritual homeland. So one of the highlights of the trip for me was the retreat that we did that a couple of the brothers have mentioned in the Root Temple, where we had many monastics come together. And it's always been very powerful for me when we have a retreat with so many monastics. Here in the US, we do what we call a US tour, where we travel to the other US centers every 2 years, and we organize retreats with all 3 centers coming together. So we have another center in Mississippi, Magnolia Grove, and another in New York called Blue Cliff. And when all of the monastics from those 3 centers are together, we have a really powerful collective energy. And it's been very healing for me when we've had retreats together. And this was like that, but even on steroids, even more. I mean, there was more monastics than I'd ever seen before, and I wrote down in my journal during the retreat that my mind was so peaceful and wholesome during those days. And one thing that was really special was we got to practice walking meditation at the Root Temple, which is a really historic temple. I think it's about 200 years old. And to practice walking with so many practitioners, at the end of the walk, I felt so happy, so alive, so present. And I saw our elder brother, Te Phap Yum, and I bowed to him, and he bowed to me, and then he took my hand, and we walked to the moon over the half moon pond in the Root Temple, and we just stood there and looked out at the pond and looked at the Sangha, and it was such a happy moment. I was like blissful. I was almost overwhelmed by happiness. yeah, in those moments, I see that there's like this amazing depth to all those things. I mean, we know that that 3-portal gate, that pond, that those grounds are ancient, and they're manifesting in the present moment with all their history behind them, and that's amazing. But it's really everything. I mean, it was the grass, the trees, the flowers, just asserting their beauty and how their wondrous nature. So that was an image that was really nourishing me and bringing me a lot of joy after we got back from the trip, and I was reflecting on it the next day. I also want to share about going to the mountain, Mount Yintu, which is I think is probably like the most holy mountain or sacred site in Vietnam. It's very important, and it's very well visited. There's a lot of pilgrims going and climbing the mountain. And we left very, very early in the morning so that we could kind of, I guess, have it to ourselves for the first couple hours. We left around 4, and there's many temples on the mountain, and as you climb the mountain, you get to one, and then you climb further, you get to the next one, and we would offer incense at the temple, which is kind of what you do when you go to a temple in Vietnam. But Thầy Pháp Lu was leading the group, and we were really walking mindfully, like he shared, and then Thầy led us in chanting when we got to the first temple, and I was really surprised because we hadn't been doing that on the trip so far at the temples, and it was early in the morning, and it kind of woke me up, and it brought the group together, and I was happy because there wasn't a lot of people around us, but as we climbed the mountain, we got more and more of an audience at each temple. And at first it was like one person watching us, and then it was like groups of people spaced around, and like a couple people with their phones out filming us. And then by the time we got to the top of the mountain, there was a huge crowd at the peak, and there's a kind of, I guess they call it a temple, but it's really like an altar with a roof over it. It's very small. It's probably 15 feet square or 12 feet square, something like that. And not much room to stand because you're at the top of this mountain. And we were with our elder brother, Thầy Pháp Hoi, and he was like, okay, so we'll do the Heart Sutra. And I was like, because the Heart Sutra is like this really powerful chant. I mean, it's kind of cinematic is the word that I wrote in my journal. It's very beautiful, but it's very, it's not like a Vietnamese chant. Like Vietnamese chants are more monotone, and there's all these Vietnamese people and all these people talking, and it's not like a ceremonial setting. So I didn't know how people were going to react to it, and we kind of stood in front of the altar, and we started chanting, and everyone stopped talking and look at us, and then all the phones come out filming us, and we go through the whole chant, which takes a few minutes, and then Thầy Pháp Hoi was like, that was perfect, and now we'll do May the Day Be Well, or From the Depths, or something like that, May the Day Be Well, and we're like, okay, all right, we're just gonna do like a chanting recitation on top of the mountain. So we do another one, and he was so happy, you know, and I never saw Thầy Pháp Hoi like that before. I think he was really proud of us, and that made me really happy. And I think also it was a moment where, you know, I wish he was here so I could introduce him to everyone. I don't know if he's here or not. But, you know, he's coming back to his homeland, and he has this beautiful Sangha, and we're standing before the ancestral altar, so it's kind of like we are an offering to the ancestors. Um, yeah, I'm going to keep that with me. Maybe that's a good place to end. Thank you for listening.
Could we offer some flowers for our brothers, opening their heart? I wish I could invite all the brothers because I know there's many stories from everyone who went on the trip. But I know there will be other stories told in rooms and different places. And we have the 5MT recitation coming up in a few minutes. So thank you for listening. And I do hope that all of you one day have a chance to go on pilgrimage in Vietnam. It's a beautiful manifestation. Recently, is two of our elder sisters, Sister Concentration and Sister Insight, Sister Denim and Doi Nim. They've been organizing guided pilgrimages to Vietnam, and we intersected a little bit with them on the trip to go to the place where the first version of Deer Park in Plum Village, which was the Fragrant Palm Leaves Hermitage in the Central Highlands of Vietnam, where Thai started a small community in the late 50s. And I deeply encourage you in the future to reflect on going on pilgrimage and having a chance to water the roots of our spiritual tradition in Vietnam. So thank you for listening, and we'll finish with 3 sounds of the bell. One